I'm going to talk today about the future of work and why you need to care about that. It's the fact that some aspects of what you do today, potentially all of what you currently do today, is going to be automated in the coming years. And to have a meaningful life and job in the future, you're going to need to learn some new skills and learn how to amplify some of those core skills like creativity that some of us have forgotten all about.
So yeah, I'm John from Decoded, and we work very closely with ING and specifically Chino in bringing training around pace to everyone within the company. And today we're here to talk about the future of work. So in the background there are some of the employees at Foxconn. People heard of Foxconn? This is a huge factory in China where they make your iPhone, probably your Samsung TV, loads of electronics. And Donald Trump's part of his recent pledge was to bring these jobs back to America. Only problem is, actually, Foxconn are planning on automating all of these jobs and replacing all of these workers with robots in the next 5 years, which is a very, very short time scale. And so I think this idea of automation changing the face of work is a huge theme. And it's a big theme here in the Netherlands too. So anyone been here? Port of Rotterdam? Anything interesting about this picture? No people, yeah. So this is kind of what life used to look like in the docks. Literally, people physically carrying stuff around. And actually, it's fully automated now. You don't need to be a strong dock worker to participate in this. You can be a 22-year-old operating a crane totally remotely now. And actually, I'm sure we all know about this person. Boo? Yeah, I don't know. maybe you like this guy, but I don't. Actually, this is a really interesting article in Bloomberg that I read this morning on my way here about actually this anger is all about robots, not immigrants. And I think there's a lot of conversation around blaming immigrants for changes to the way people live their lives, but this is a really, really convincing piece saying that actually there's a whole section of society which feels very, very scared and vulnerable because their jobs are disappearing. So that cheerful topic is going to be the subject of today. And I think there are three big themes or opinions that we wanted to share with you today. The first is that automation is inevitable, even for you. So it's going to affect every single person in this room, I believe. Secondly, that means work is going to be totally unrecognizable by 2035. And I picked that date at random, obviously. But this is a short timescale. Within your working lifetime, work is going to be transformed. And finally, to cope with that, we need an education revolution. So let's start with the first of those. Automation is inevitable even for you. There's nothing new about automation. So there's lots of people talking about this now, and it's become a hot topic. But actually, this has been happening for most of human history. If you go back about 500 years, about 60% of you, so kind of up to that line there, over there, would all work in agriculture. You'd be farmers. Or shepherds, or whatever. And actually, this is a quote from my favorite poet, William Blake, and he looks back on this time a few hundred years later saying, how sweet is the shepherd's sweet lot? How wonderful it was when we all worked in agriculture on farms. Actually, the reality of agricultural work was pretty horrible, working 12 to 14-hour days, living in a house made of manure and mud, literally a house made of shit. That was your existence. And luckily, things moved on and things changed. And the big catalyst for this was the Industrial Revolution. So this is a great image of an early factory. And just to show the kind of scale of change, picking these three dates, in 1700, 1841, and 2017, what percentage of the population worked in agriculture? 41% of people. So this is, these are actually from the UK, but the Netherlands have got very, very similar data. What do you think by 1841? 25? 21? Can't quite see it. And how about today? 5? 3? You're all too high. Actually, 1% of people. So this is in the UK, less than 1% now working agriculture. In the Netherlands, 2% of people now work in agriculture. So all of these jobs have been totally obliterated. So what's happened to them? Again, this is just a chart showing how the share has declined. This is agriculture until today in several European cities. And then looking at, again, at the UK, but it's a similar picture everywhere. You can see agriculture here in 1841 declining to today's point of about 1%. And we have manufacturing, which again did pretty well at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, but in the 20th century also began to decline. And in the meantime, suddenly, the service sector has risen as where most people are employed. Obviously, all of you work in the service sector now. And actually, this is the area where people are now getting interested or concerned that automation is going to hit next. We've had automation in manufacturing, we've had automation in agriculture, and the services sector is coming next. There's nothing new about this, even. This is an image of a famous British actor using the first ever ATM in the UK in the 60s. And ATMs were a kind of a classic innovation that automated away a job that used to be done by humans. Actually, it's quite an interesting one. They say that, looking at the data, the fact that we replaced humans with ATMs meant that more branches opened and actually more people ended up getting into work as a result of this automation, weirdly. But yeah, what about today? Automation is for everyone. And I thought I should probably swallow my own medicine at this point because I've been getting worried. And it's easy to sort of think, okay, factory workers, okay, dock workers, okay, agricultural workers, I get it. But not me. I'm so special and creative and intelligent, my job can't be automated. Actually, it can. I look back at what I did 5 years ago, and I had a couple of jobs at the time. The first job was building websites for like small clients, usually solo entrepreneurs or maybe a small charity or a musician, and building them a website. And I used to get, £500, £1,000 for building a quick little website in a few days. And my brief was pretty much the same always. They had their content, they had some colors and maybe a logo, and I had to bring those together to make a website. And it was a very, very similar process. It was very kind of repeatable. And kind of the big question was, do you want your Twitter bar on the left or on the right? It seemed to be the kind of the main choice involved in these processes. And actually, I was at a dinner party over Christmas, and someone said to me, oh yeah, you make websites, can you make me a website? And I said, well, actually, no, I'd feel like I'm ripping you off, because you can actually go to Squarespace now and create a beautiful website. Again, you just need the content, some sense of colors and where you want things, maybe a logo. Plug those graphic assets and your content in, and you end up with a beautiful website for a fraction of the cost of what I used to do. So my job's disappeared in 5 years. Another thing I used to do was write news stories for a couple of magazines. And actually, even that is now at threat. This is Forbes, if anyone's read Forbes, I don't know. Over here, you've got some writers for this particular section, and these four are human. This contributor here is actually someone called narrative science. So all of these news stories are written by an algorithm after someone's plugged some data in. And actually, if I look back to what I did as a sort of news writer, someone gives you a raw, maybe it's a press release or like a sports result or some stock figures, and you have to convert that into a news story. And this organization, Narrative Science, are now replacing that part of what I used to do as well. I don't know if people saw this. This was earlier this year. A Japanese insurance company has been replacing office workers with an AI. Finally, we don't need lawyers anymore. This is great. Contract review automation, courtesy of Law Geeks. And this is, I put this in for Dan, I'm afraid. Lady Gaga's backup dancers have even been replaced by drones. So there is a genuine sense that this is coming to like every aspect of what we do. Anyone got Google Inbox, the app? Yeah. So that now automatically offers you short replies to emails. Like if someone says, can we meet at 1? It says, yeah, that sounds good. Can we meet at 2:30? Or no, I can't do it. And you just click on one of those options, and it automatically sends that email. And that's a huge part of what people actually spend most of their lives doing at the moment, sending emails. And even that is being automated away by artificial intelligence. So as a result of that, all of these changes, work will be unrecognizable by 2035. This isn't a meeting room in the offices of Coolblue, a big retailer here. This is a meeting room. Like this is people. This is work apparently. And if you think about like a kind of a dock worker from the earlier 20th century or an agricultural worker, if you showed them this, two people chatting in a field of bulls, I don't think they'd say this looked anything like work. Work used to be a very physical, back-breaking activity, and now suddenly the workplace looks like this. This is from a great Twitter series, actually, of other tech companies who've got similar meeting rooms. So this is John. As you know, things have been tough. Are you firing me? It's just. John slams hand on Pac-Man table. We've been hacked. They found a loophole. It's not possible. Gather the team. Let's meet in the Mario room. And so on and so forth. It continues. There's Cool Blue. Yeah. Executive meeting, Bullpit Room 3. So work is transforming, and lots of people have had a few ideas around the types of jobs that will exist in the future, which I think will be just as unrecognizable as our workspaces. This is a lovely article about 10 creepy-sounding job titles from 2025, not long to go, 8 years' time. Virtual habitat designer, ethical technology advocate, digital cultural commentator, freelance biohacker, space tour guide sounds fun, human body designer. So, and of course, no one really knows, but there have been some pretty good guesses. So this is an interesting piece from a bit of research from Harvard University, based on actual data. Those kind of job titles, I think anyone can sort of make up. And it shows two axes. So this axis here is math skills. This one here is social skills. Green blobs indicate that the share in jobs has gone up. So there are now more jobs in these areas. And pink means there's less jobs than there were previously. And this is from the 70s until 2014, I think. So you can already see that actually anything down here, particularly in this bottom corner here, that requires low social skills and low math skills, jobs are disappearing. Laborers, welders, auto mechanics, truck drivers, carpenters. Over on this side even, mathematicians, accounting clerks, we're needing less and less of these types of people. Really up here on the top in the social skills area where we are finding needs for jobs. So we've got nurses, care workers, counsellors, lawyers. And over here, financial managers, physicians, computer scientists. And really, I think if you look on the far side of this, so low technical skills but high social skills, you have care workers, so people working in healthcare. And we have a huge need with an aging population. Unfortunately, these jobs tend not to pay very well. So really, moving over here, this is kind of the sweet spot where you want to be. One of my favorite quotes about this is from a guy called Kevin Kelly. He was the founding editor of Wired magazine, and he's the futurologist who assisted on, what's that film? The film where they have the kind of Tom Cruise and the swipey Minority Report, yeah, okay. So they say that like 90% of the ideas in that have already come true. So personalized advertising, displays you can move with gestures. He advised on that. So in the futurology space, which is a dodgy area, I kind of trust this guy the most. He says, if you can specify a task, either manual or conceptual, that can be specified in terms of efficiency or productivity, that goes to the robots. Productivity is for robots. What we're really good at is wasting time. So like, this sounds pretty dystopian, the idea that what humans are good for is wasting time. But he goes on to list some examples of this. So science is an area where actually there's a lot of experimentation. It's very hard to put an ROI because you might work for 10 years and discover nothing. But suddenly you have a breakthrough that changes everything. He talks about innovation as well, which will be comforting news for most of the people in this room, as another area where you have, again, it's hard to put an ROI on it and hard to measure productivity day to day because you can easily spend 3-4 months just failing to learn something. Creativity in general is another area that he talks about, as is forging human relationships. Like making a nice human empathetic relationship is not a productive activity. It's kind of a waste of time in a lot of senses, but actually we found there is value in it, and that's the sort of thing where humans can still add value. Which is why I would go as far to say that creativity is the new productivity. If you think about how much we can automate in terms of all those measurable parts of our lives, where can we start adding value in the creative space? So this has obviously got huge impact, loads of jobs disappearing, loads of new ones being created. And actually to cope with this, I would say we need an education revolution. Going back in time, I think we like going back in time because it's, we can only learn from the past, and I think it is scary when you enter this kind of new future-facing world. But this was a scary time. This was a time when farm workers were losing their jobs, and there were all these new factories going up, and there were all kinds of political problems associated with that. But there was a solution at this point. And actually, the Industrial Revolution in the Netherlands, in the UK, most of Western Europe, coincided, not coincidentally, with a rise in education standards. So I promise that one day I'll learn how to pronounce this. I'm not going to say it. Okay. This organization, I don't know if anyone's heard about them. I was reading about them recently. Amazing, amazing organization in the Netherlands. The Society for Public Welfare. And in 1784, they were founded, and their purpose was educating the Netherlands. And it's thanks to them that we have compulsory free public education for primary school age children. And eventually those reforms went on to secondary education as well. In the UK, by the way, we had this, and all of the factory owners were really, really scared about primary education because they wanted cheap child labor. We needed those like 6-year-olds working the factories, otherwise productivity would fall away, apparently. But of course, actually this went hand in hand with a rising skilled workforce. Same sort of time as well, we had the opening up of public universities, and suddenly anyone could study further and further into their lives. And I think we're now at a place in the 20th century where most people go through, a big block of education at the beginning of their lives, up until 18 usually, and sometimes beyond into university. That's not enough anymore. And this was a great article recently in The Economist, a whole special issue, in fact, about how in this changing circumstance world of us having more and more jobs disappearing and at a faster and faster rate, alongside a rapidly aging population. Like, we're all probably going to live till we're 120 and retire at age 80 or something. It's terrifying, terrifying numbers. And actually, this focused block of education at the beginning of your life just doesn't cut it anymore. Actually, we need to really rethink how we continue learning throughout our entire careers. How this actually happens remains to be seen. Some governments are already taking this really, really seriously. So this is Singapore. And in Singapore, they've just created this new initiative called the Skills Future Credit. And this is for anyone over 25 will get $500 worth of education on any topic they want. And I was having a look. There's a huge directory of courses, everything from big data analytics to pastry and baking. I mean, you'd kind of think that this is actually the one to go for, big data analytics, but there's already AIs writing AI software. Maybe pastry and baking is the one to go for. I don't know. I think actually the breadth in topics and understanding a lot of different disciplines is a really, really key part in creativity and innovation, and actually being as broad as possible is the best way to go. So that's the government stepping in. Another area is companies. So obviously, I work for Decoded. We're a technology education company, and we work with companies like ING who put a high value on actually retraining and re-educating existing staff in new areas. So there's a lot of companies doing this. AT&T in America has just spent, I think, £30 million on tuition for their current workforce, to try and get people on Udacity's nano degree program, doing degrees in full stack developer, AI engineer, self-driving car engineer. They're just putting a lot of effort, time, and resources into making sure their workforce is super up to speed with all of this. And there's also rising evidence that this is what new recruits care about. Millennials, I hate that word in general, but millennials apparently value education as like top of the list for what they look for in a job, above things like salary, because we all know we're not going to have very good salaries for the next 10 years. So actually education is where people see the value. Our kind of thoughts on this is the topics that we cover: code, Internet of Things, cybersecurity, and we love this stuff. We think this technology is really, really amazing, but at the heart of it all, really, there's a lot of that kind of softer skills, the social side, are starting to become more and more important. So topics like innovation and storytelling are becoming really, really core to what people need within their business. So just to summarize, automation's inevitable even for you, so start watching out. Parts of your job will be automated over the next 10, 15 years. Secondly, because of that, work is going to be really unrecognizable in the next few decades. And finally, we need an education revolution to tackle that. And that's the end. Thank you.